The air in the DC federal courtroom didn't just feel heavy today, it felt electric, like the moments right before a lightning strike hits the pavement. You could hear a pin drop, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that happens when the most powerful people in the country realize the door has been locked from the inside. And then she walked in, Pam Bondi. She didn't look like an official coming to give a dry report. She looked like a woman who had spent years memorizing every face of the people who tried to bury her, and today, she was finally ready to call their names. I've been watching this play out for weeks, and I'm telling you, the mainstream media is absolutely terrified to show you the full clip. They want to focus on the procedural fluff, the legal jargon, and the unredacted labels, but I want you to look at her eyes, because when Bondi took her seat, she didn't just open a briefcase, she opened a portal into a world of shadow deals and backroom handshakes that they swore we'd never see. She leaned into the microphone, that signature calm mask slipping just enough for us to see the fire underneath, and she said it. She told the court, and by extension the entire world, that the hidden deals everyone had been whispering about weren't just rumors. They were documented, they were signed, and they were about to be read into the record. You have to understand the gravity of this moment. For years we've been told that we're the ones imagining things, that the corruption we see with our own eyes is just a conspiracy. But today, the Attorney General of the United States stood up and basically said, "I have the receipts, and I'm tired of holding them." The room didn't just fall silent, it felt like the entire city of Washington, D.C. held its breath. This wasn't just a legal filing, this was an eviction notice for the status quo. I've spent the last 6 hours digging through the preliminary transcripts, and my jaw is still on the floor. We're talking about specific names, specific dates, and a web of influence that stretches from the tech giants of Silicon Valley to the darkest corners of the Epstein files. They thought they could use the legal system to trap her, to subpoena her into submission, but Bondi did something they never expected. She didn't hide behind executive privilege. She didn't dodge. She walked right into the heart of the storm and started naming names that make the elite tremble in their designer suits. If you've ever felt like the system was rigged against people like us, against those who just want the truth without the spin, then this is the moment you've been waiting for. This is the moment where the hunter becomes the hunted. The hidden deals aren't hidden anymore, and the people who made them are realizing that their secrets have an expiration date. But as explosive as that opening statement was, it was only the beginning, because while the courtroom was still reeling from her first revelation, Bondi reached back into that briefcase for a second document, a document that involves a deal so massive, so global, and so protected by the highest levels of the establishment that even her own team warned her not to bring it. But she brought it anyway, and what it reveals about the true cost of our national security is enough to make you realize that the war for America isn't being fought on a battlefield, it's being fought in a courtroom, right now. The timing of Bondi's move isn't an accident. We are standing at a jagged crossroads where the high-gloss success of the Dow hitting 50,000 is colliding head-on with a desperate, coordinated attempt to decapitate the administration's momentum. While you're celebrating your 401k hitting record highs, a shadow war is being waged in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals that could strip away the very sovereignty we just fought to reclaim. The stakes reached a fever pitch this week when a new high-stakes lawsuit was filed by the Public Integrity Project. They aren't just coming for a policy, they are coming for the TikTok deal, the USDS joint venture that was supposed to secure our data and keep our digital town square out of Beijing's hands. Critics are screaming that Bondi and Trump bypassed the 2024 divestiture law to help their allies, but I see it for what it really is, a frantic attempt by the establishment to regain control over the information you consume. But it gets even deeper. At the same time, a bipartisan group of lawmakers, including names you'd expect like Nancy Mace, just voted to subpoena Bondi over the missing Epstein files. They are accusing her of a greatest cover-up in history, claiming millions of pages, videos, and logs are being suppressed. The narrative is being set. They want you to believe Bondi is a shield for the powerful, rather than a sword for the people. This isn't just a legal skirmish, it's a battle to decide if the hidden deals of the past will finally be used to bury the future. The establishment is backed into a corner, and a cornered animal is always the most dangerous. What happens next doesn't just change the case, it changes the country. To understand why the walls are closing in on the establishment, you have to look at the people leading the charge against Bondi. These aren't just concerned lawmakers, they are the architects of a system that is terrified of losing its grip. Take Nancy Mace, for instance. Once seen as a rising star of the GOP, she has now positioned herself as the primary internal agitator, leading a pack of 5 Republicans who have crossed the aisle to join forces with the most radical elements of the opposition. They claim they are fighting for transparency, But if you look at their history, the only thing they've ever been transparent about is their desire to maintain the status quo. Then you have figures like Robert Garcia and the leadership of the Public Integrity Project, a newly minted organization that sounds noble on paper but acts as a heat-seeking missile for the administrative state. These are the same voices who remained silent for years while the previous administration's Justice Department was being hollowed out, yet they are suddenly outraged by the speed at which Bondi is moving. Their arrogance is breathtaking. They operate from a place of deep-seated entitlement, believing that the American people don't have the right to see how the TikTok deal was brokered or why the Epstein files were redacted with such reckless disregard for the survivors. This is the classic antagonist playbook: projection. They accuse Bondi of a cover-up, while they themselves were the ones who sat on these files for decades. They call her weak and ineffective in the press, hoping to create a rift between her and the president, yet they tremble every time she walks into a committee hearing with a new binder of evidence. They are the leftovers of an era where justice was a weapon used against political enemies and a shield used to protect friends. They've spent their careers in the shadows, and now that Bondi is turning on the lights, they are scurrying like insects. They didn't count on a woman who doesn't care about their dinner party invitations or their backroom threats. Their biggest mistake was assuming she would play by their rules, not realizing that the rules have changed and the people are finally the ones holding the scorecard. To understand the woman standing in the center of this hurricane, you have to look past the headlines and into the grit of where she started. Pam Bondi wasn't born into the ivory towers of D.C. She's a daughter of the Tampa Bay area, a prosecutor who spent nearly 2 decades in the trenches of the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office. She didn't learn about justice from a textbook. She learned it by looking victims and defendants in the eye for 18 years. When she became Florida's first female attorney general in 2011, she didn't just take a seat at the table, she broke the table. She went after the pill mills that were gutting American families and stood her ground against federal overreach during the Obama years, proving early on that she wasn't afraid to be the only person in the room saying no. But her journey to this courtroom today wasn't a straight line. It was a climb through fire. After leaving Florida, she became a primary shield for the movement, serving as a defense attorney during the first impeachment trial, and later leading the litigation charge at the America First Policy Institute. She's been called a loyalist, a firebrand, and every name in the book by an establishment that hates her for one simple reason: she knows where the bodies are buried, because she's the one they couldn't buy. This background is exactly why she was chosen to lead the Department of Justice in 2025. While others would have crumbled under the weight of the Epstein subpoenas or the TikTok litigation, Bondi has the skin of a veteran prosecutor. She knows that when the elite start screaming about norms and traditions, it's usually because they're terrified of a woman who actually remembers what the law is supposed to do: protect the people, not the powerful. Every struggle she's faced, from the pill mill wars to the heated 2020 election challenges, was just training for this moment. She isn't just defending a president, she's defending a philosophy that says the truth belongs to you, not to a committee behind a closed door. And as she reached into that briefcase to pull out the next set of documents, you could see that lifetime of preparation in the set of her jaw, because what she was about to reveal next wasn't just a legal argument, it was a reckoning. The tension in the hearing room didn't just rise, it curdled. The air grew thick with the kind of animosity you only see when the mask of civility finally slips. On one side, you had Nancy Mace, her voice sharp as a razor, accusing the Department of Justice of orchestrating the greatest cover-up in American history. She wasn't just asking questions, she was hurling indictments, pointing to the 47,000 missing pages and the 180,000 images she claims are being held hostage by Bondi's team. Every time Mace leaned into the microphone, you could see the frustration of a committee that feels like it's being stonewalled by a wall of redacted ink. But Bondi didn't flinch. While the room descended into a partisan shouting match, she sat there with a composure that seemed to infuriate her critics even more. When the accusations about the hidden TikTok deals and the alleged suppression of the Epstein files were thrown at her like grenades, she didn't retreat. Instead, she pivoted with a move that left her detractors visibly rattled. She didn't apologize for the redactions. She framed them as a shield for the victims. She didn't stay on their script. When they demanded answers on the subpoenas, she looked them dead in the eye and started talking about the Dow hitting 50,000 and the 401ks of the American people. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare. The more they screamed about the past, the more she focused on the future, leaving the room in a state of absolute chaotic disbelief as the hidden deals began to surface. The room was still buzzing with Nancy Mace's accusations when Bondi did the one thing no one in the establishment expected. She didn't offer a scripted denial. She didn't hide behind a no comment. Instead, she looked directly at the committee and essentially told them they were looking at the wrong map. While they were obsessing over 47,000 missing pages, Bondi revealed that the true hidden deals were the ones her office had just declassified. Documents that prove the TikTok USDS joint venture wasn't a shakedown, but a strategic maneuver to pull the plug on foreign propaganda while the previous administration sat on its hands. "You want to talk about shielding the powerful?" she asked, her voice cutting through the noise like a serrated blade. "Let's talk about the companies suing us today, because they're mad, they couldn't monopolize your data." She then dropped the ultimate hammer. She confirmed that the Department of Justice is currently investigating why certain rival tech giants were so desperate to see TikTok banned rather than secured. She framed the entire revenge narrative not as a personal vendetta, but as a legal reckoning for those who tried to use the law as a corporate hit tool. As she laid out the proof that the new 80% American-owned entity was a win for sovereignty, the faces of her detractors didn't just drop, they went pale. The mic drop wasn't just a clever line, it was the sound of a narrative shifting in real time. But as the committee scrambled to respond, the real shockwave was just beginning to hit the world outside those doors. The moment Bondi stepped out of that courtroom, the digital world didn't just react, it fractured. Within minutes, #Bondi's Revenge and #The Burn Book were trending globally, but the conversation wasn't about legal precedents, it was about the raw power she had just displayed. On X and TikTok, clips of her mic drop counterattack were being remixed into anthems of defiance, with millions of viewers celebrating what they saw as the first real punch thrown back at a system that has been trying to silence the movement for years. But the real shockwaves were felt in the corridors of power. Reports started flooding in of emergency meetings at rival tech headquarters, where executives are reportedly reeling from her reveal that the DOJ is investigating their role in the hidden deals to monopolize your data. On Capitol Hill, the atmosphere turned toxic. Representative Jamie Raskin and others immediately pivoted, accusing Bondi of spying on lawmakers after a photograph surfaced of her burn book, a binder allegedly containing the search histories of the very committee members questioning her. The mainstream media is scrambling to frame this as a breach of norms, but the public sees the irony. The same people who demanded transparency are now terrified that the light is finally being turned on them. This isn't just a news cycle, it's a psychological shift. The hunters are realizing they are no longer in control of the narrative, and the aftermath is proving that in 2026, the truth doesn't just come out, it strikes back. At the end of the day, this isn't just about a woman in a courtroom or a set of redacted files. It's about a fundamental question: who does the truth belong to? For decades, the answer was them, the gatekeepers, the committees, the people who decided what was national security and what was just an embarrassing secret. But what we saw today from Pam Bondi was a reclamation of that truth. The resolution of this drama isn't just a legal win, it's a moral victory for every American who has ever been told to sit down and be quiet while the adults in the room handle the real business. The lesson here is simple but profound. Dignity is non-negotiable. They tried to use shame, subpoenas, and the threat of the Epstein stain to break her, but Bondi showed that when you stand on a foundation of transparency, the wind can't blow you over. This is the new American standard. We are moving into an era where hidden deals are a liability, not an asset. Whether it's securing our digital borders with the TikTok joint venture or finally lancing the boil of the Epstein records, the moral arc of this story is bending toward accountability. It's a reminder that justice isn't a gift given by the powerful, it's a right demanded by the people. As the dust settles in DC, the message is clear: the era of the shadow player is over, the lights are on, and for the first time in a long time, the American people are the ones holding the switch. The gavel has fallen, but the echoes of Bondi's Revenge are just beginning to vibrate through every corner of this country. What we witnessed today wasn't just a legal defense, it was a manifesto. It was Pam Bondi standing at the gates of the establishment and declaring that the days of business as usual are dead and buried. They wanted to trap her in a web of subpoenas and scandals, but instead she used their own momentum to catapult the truth into the public square. This is why they fear her. This is why they spend millions to keep these stories off your local news. They know that once you see the hidden deals for what they really are, a desperate attempt to keep you in the dark, you can never be controlled again. Now, it's your turn. This movement isn't a spectator sport. It lives and breathes through your voice. If you believe that the American people deserve an attorney general who fights for the light instead of hiding in the shadows, then I need you to do 3 things right now. First, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We are the only ones tracking these filings in real time. Second, share this video. The algorithms are trying to bury this, and your share is the only way to break the fever of the mainstream media. Finally, leave a comment below. Tell me, do you believe Bondi's burn book is the key to finally cleaning out the swamp? We are building a community of the informed, the bold, and the brave. Stay tuned, stay vigilant, and remember, the truth doesn't just set you free, it gives you the power to lead. I'm out.